Before anyone develops real skill, there's a phase where they feel confused, unfocused, inconsistent, and unsure of where to start. You may have experienced this yourself, wanting to improve, yet falling back into familiar habits, wanting discipline, but feeling weighed down by how long the journey seems. Long ago, a young boy experienced the same struggle. That boy was Miyamoto Musashi, who would later become one of the most respected samurai in history. He was restless, irritated, unsuccessful, and often uncertain about why progress felt so slow. His father taught him a lesson he would not fully understand until much later in life. Before try to win, learn how to observe. That lesson marked the start of a path to mastery that would later be known as Shuhari, a path that still applies today. Before Musashi became a name spoken with respect across Japan, he was simply a boy struggling to control a body that felt too uncontrolled for the world around him. Historical accounts describe him as rough, hot-headed, and unable to stay still. While other children focused on their studies, Musashi wandered dirt paths with a wooden sword scraping the ground, searching for anyone willing to challenge him. He lacked discipline, he lacked refinement, and he was far from skilled. What he did possess was something basic but powerful, a desire to become someone he had not yet reached. One morning, after losing a practice match to an older student, Musashi came home angry. His pride was hurt more deeply than his body. His father, Munisai, observed him quietly from the doorway. He saw the shaking hands, the uneven breathing, and the stubborn refusal to acknowledge weakness. Munisai was a firm man, but not cruel. He understood what it meant for a young warrior to burn with more intensity than control. "Musashi," he said, "you're trying to fight with a fire that has no shape yet." He then led his son into the yard, where an old tree stump sat embedded in the ground. "Strike this," he instructed, "every day, until you understand what real strength is." Musashi was confused. He expected training in movement, a new method, something more engaging. Instead, he was given a stump, lifeless, unmoving wood. "Why this?" he asked. His father remained calm. "Because the stump will not react to you. It won't fear you. You will learn more from it than from any opponent." So Musashi began, day after day, strike after strike. At first, he attacked the stump the same way he approached everything. Too quickly, too forcefully, without control of breath or timing. The wooden sword bounced back, leaving his arms numb. Splinters dug into his hands. His shoulders ached. Some mornings, he felt like throwing the sword away and disappearing into the mountains. Yet he returned every day, and gradually, the stump began to teach him. He noticed how gripping too tightly too soon weakened a strike, how adjusting his weight changed the sound of impact, how breathing before swinging stabilized the blade, how the stump did not respond to power alone, but to accuracy. Frustration turned into focus. Focus became awareness. Awareness settled into calm. Shu is this phase, even though Musashi did not yet know the term. It is the stage of following, where repetition turns into awareness, and awareness slowly becomes instinct. One morning, several weeks into his training, Musashi looked down at his hands. The blisters had turned into firm calluses. The shaking in his grip had disappeared. His stance felt steady. His swing felt connected. Not rushed, not chaotic, but controlled and clear. His father watched quietly from the doorway and gave a small nod. "Now," he said, "you are starting to see, not starting to win, not starting to fight, starting to see." Musashi did not become remarkable because of natural talent. He became remarkable by repeating the simple, uncelebrated work that most people avoid. The early mornings, the silent practice, the foundation that receives no praise. Years later, when he entered his first real duel at the age of 13, the world saw a boy capable of defeating an adult samurai. But Musashi understood the truth. That victory was not created in the intensity of the fight. It was formed one strike at a time, in the quiet of his yard, against a stump that never moved. And this is the reality of beginnings. Mastery does not arrive with spectacle. It shows itself quietly, during long hours when progress seems invisible. Shu is not about brilliance. It is about consistency, about humility, about learning how to stand before learning how to strike. Musashi's path did not begin with greatness. It began with hardened hands, an unmovable stump, and a boy finally understanding how to control his breath. Breaking the pattern. By the time Musashi reached his late teens, he had moved beyond the stump in his father's yard. The fundamentals were no longer sufficient. His stance was stable. His strikes were precise. His breathing matched the flow of his movement. Yet something within him became restless once again. The same fire that once led him into trouble as a child had grown into a deeper desire. He wanted to understand the sword, not merely use it. He wanted to understand his opponents, not just overcome them. And he wanted to understand himself. So he left home. There was no ceremony, no farewell gathering, just a young man with a wooden sword at his side and a resolve larger than his village. That moment marked the start of Musashi's years of wandering. These were the years when he shifted from simply learning form to challenging it. The encounters he faced along the road were very different from the control drills he had practiced. Some opponents were reckless. Others were patient. Some carried weapons he had never encountered before. Others fought driven by fear, desperation, or revenge, motives that had little to do with honor. Musashi quickly understood that real combat does not follow rules. It does not wait for a perfect stance. It does not pause for ceremony. And it does not reward tradition on its own. This realization opened his thinking. One evening, he arrived at a village controlled by the Yoshio clan, a samurai school known for overpowering newcomers. The students trained through rigid kata, precise lines, perfect timing, and carefully memorized movements. Yet something unsettled him. The forms were refined, but fragile, predictable, fixed, untested by real pressure. Musashi asked one student why their training was so strict. "This is the correct way," the student replied confidently. "Innovation is dangerous." Musashi smiled. Only when attention is lost. When he challenged the school's teacher, the village assumed Musashi would be defeated immediately. But when the duel began, Musashi did not copy their stance. He did not follow their pattern. He stepped slightly off the line, a small adjustment, but unexpected enough to disrupt timing. The teacher hesitated for a brief moment. Musashi moved into that opening and ended the duel far more quickly than anyone anticipated. The village reacted in murmurs, some impressed, others angered. Musashi had not been trained in their way. He did not follow their route. He disrupted the pattern. The duel was not about victory. It was about understanding something more meaningful. If you only practice what you are taught, you will only ever defeat those who were taught the same way. Musashi began searching for unfamiliar opponents. Spearmen, archers, chain and sickle users, fighters in armor, fighters who were half drunk, and fighters with nothing left to lose. Each encounter taught him something different. Timing, distance, psychology, fatigue, fear, deception. He later wrote that one must study the methods of many disciplines, and during these wandering years, he lived by that idea. He learned from carpenters how to judge weight and balance. He learned from monks how to control his breathing in moments of chaos. He observed animals and how instinct often replaces hesitation. The breaking stage was not rebellion. It was growth. There is a story of Musashi watching waves crash against a cliff. A fisherman asked him why. Musashi replied that to understand strength, he studied what does not try to appear strong. He began breaking not only technique, but his own assumptions. He stopped depending on forms and started trusting perception. He stopped acting from memory and began acting from awareness. That he stopped fighting individual opponents and began confronting patterns. One of the most well-known examples came during his duel with Shishito Bacon, a master of the chain and sickle. Most swordsmen froze when the weighted chain started to spin. It was hypnotic, unpredictable, and dangerous. Tradition advised, keep your distance. Tradition advised, wait for an opening. Musashi ignored tradition. As soon as the chain moved, he stepped forward, surprising everyone. Bacon expected hesitation. Instead, he faced direct pressure. The duel ended within moments. Breaking patterns does not mean rejecting what you have learned. It means growing beyond it. In modern life, this is the stage where many people stall. You learn the fundamentals, then repeat them endlessly. Progress slows. Creativity fades. Confidence weakens. Is the point where you take responsibility for your own development. Is the moment you stop following out of fear. You stop hiding behind routines that once supported you. You stop convincing yourself that repetition alone equals improvement. Is the moment you decide there must be another approach and then demonstrate it. Musashi did not become legendary by mastering a single style. He became legendary because he refused to remain confined to one. He did not discard the basics. He extended them. He did not reject his teachers. He moved beyond them. He did not break patterns for the sake of rebellion. He broke patterns for clarity. Ha is untidy. Ha is uncomfortable. Ha is growth. And Musashi moved through this stage with the same firm determination he had as a child. Only now his intensity was shaped, not uncontrolled. He was no longer learning how to strike. He was learning how to understand. By the time Musashi reached his 30s, he had already defeated many of the most respected warriors in Japan. He had fought in forests, along riverbanks, in narrow streets, across open fields, and even against entire clans. He slept in temples, barns, roadside inns, and at times beneath the open sky. His life had become a long journey of duels, setbacks, breakthroughs, observations, and small insights collected over years of travel. Then something unexpected occurred. He stopped seeking opponents. Not because he feared defeat. He understood that winning and losing mattered less than clarity. He stopped because he realized he had reached a stage that no opponent could move him beyond. Technique had turned into understanding. Understanding had turned into insight. Insight began forming into something deeper, expression. This marked the beginning of the stage where form and formlessness meet. There's a quiet story from this time. Musashi was invited to observe a calligraphy master in Kyoto. The master wrote with such simple ease that each stroke appeared alive. Musashi watched silently, expecting some lesson about hand position or brush control. Instead, the master placed the brush down and said, "You fight with the body. I write with the body. But expression comes from somewhere else." Musashi did not reply, but something within him shifted. He was no longer observing technique. He was watching someone who had become their craft, beyond rules, beyond imitation, beyond effort. The brush moved because the man moved, and the man moved because the moment moved. This was Musashi began exploring this stage in ways few expected from swordsmen. He painted landscapes and birds. He carved wooden figures. He wrote poetry. He sketched animals from memory. These were not hobbies. They were extensions of the same inner process that shaped his skill with the sword. By mastering multiple arts, he stopped seeing divisions between them. To Musashi, the sword, the brush, and the chisel followed the same path. In duels, this state became even clearer. He no longer depended on rehearsed footwork or memorized responses. His movements were simple, almost plain. He was not faster or stronger. He was present, fully aware of rhythm, timing, intent, and the subtle changes in the space around him. When he faced Sasaki Kojiro on Ganryu Island, people often remember the wooden sword carved from an oar, the late arrival, or the single decisive strike. But the true victory was not in the tactic. It was in the mindset. Musashi stepped onto that shore with nothing to protect and nothing to prove. He fought with the same clarity he used when he painted. His presence itself became the weapon. That is the essence of You no longer use technique. You become technique. After Kojiro's defeat, Musashi felt no sense of triumph. Witnesses said he left in silence, detached and unsatisfied. Not because the duel lacked meaning, but because he realized the path of the sword had given him all it could. To continue growing, he had to move beyond even that. So he withdrew from the world. He entered Ryagando, a quiet cave overlooking the valley, and lived alone with only a few tools, blank scrolls, and the thoughts gathered from decades of wandering. There in silence, he wrote the Book of Five Rings, not as a trophy and not as a simple manual, but as a final effort to translate a lifetime of movement into words others could understand. The lessons he wrote were not about sword technique. They were about perception, timing, rhythm, awareness, and state of mind. They were the distilled essence of Ri, the understanding that the highest technique is clarity and the truest path is the one you build yourself. In modern life, Ri appears when you stop copying and begin becoming. When discipline turns into identity. When the habits you once forced yourself to practice become the foundation of who you naturally are. When you can express yourself through your craft without hesitation or comparison. Ri is the stage where external approval loses its hold, where creativity returns, where mastery becomes freedom. Musashi did not reach this stage by chasing greatness. He reached it by committing to the path long enough for the path to shape him in return. He followed. He broke. He transcended. And you can do it too.